What kind of economy do you live in? Is it a rural economy or is it an urban economy? What do I mean by that question? Are you sustainable where you live? Is everyone around you sustainable? Is the system that is working in your community sustainable? Hello everyone, my name is Pauline Motora, presenting a paper on adoption of bio-based economies in rural Kenya for improved livelihoods. My co-authors are Dr. Wairimu Maina and Dr. Peter Kamau. A good livelihood means you can access good education, you're able to access health services, your environment is sustainable, and the energy systems you're using are also sustainable. Global focus on sustainability has gone a notch higher to include communities, to include people living in one geographic area. How can we make each and every person in that specific community sustainable? Bio-based economy is therefore the process of reduction of the use of fossil fuel and using more of other material, using more of other sustainable practice materials, for example, biogas. The distributed bio-based economy also focuses on raw materials, the use, the production, and the wasting. How do we dispose of this raw material? Do we use it? Do we just throw it away? Development of rural areas within any community is focused on the primary activities happening in those areas. Is it agriculture? Is it fishing? What activity is primary to that community? The secondary activities are the support of the primary activities, and they are also within this bio-based economy. Other activities that support a bio-based economy in rural area are the social activities and the social entities of a community. How does this community relate with each other? How do they relate with their governments? How do they relate with their pastors? Sub-Saharan Africa is facing a major challenge in how to improve economies, how to make economies sustainable. The economies proposed for Sub-Saharan Africa are meant to make livelihoods better for the people, are meant to improve how people live, how people interact with their environment and each other in general. Kenya, especially, is focusing this improvement of these economies using devolution. Devolution in Kenya came through the adoption of the Constitution in 2010, where 47 counties were distributed within the geographic region in Kenya. Within these 47 counties are different constituencies. Devolution currently is focused on 4 main agendas of our president, and the agendas are enhancing manufacturing, food security and nutrition, affordable housing, and universal healthcare. Within Kenya, 85% of the community lives in rural area. That's to say, more than half of Kenya is living in rural areas. It basically means the percentage in urban areas relies on the rural communities for their survival. Much of the environmental harm is associated with use of fertilizers and transportation of raw materials from rural areas to urban areas where most of these industries to produce and use of these raw materials are found. The main objective of the study was to investigate to what extent, if any, bio-based economies have been applied in rural Kenya. Based on this research, the researchers were looking at to what extent bio-based economies have been adopted in Murang'a County. The second and specific objective also was to investigate the hindrances towards the adoption of these bio-based economies in these rural areas and to highlight the benefits of the same. The final objective of the research was to investigate the best practices or drivers of economic bio-based economies within these rural areas that could be adopted to make these economies bio-based and sustainable. The methodology for this research was an applied qualitative approach, and also the survey approach was used. As the population for the research is very vast geographically distributed, it is Kenya and the rural parts of Kenya are very, very vastly distributed. The researcher picked Murang'a as a sample for the study, and within Murang'a, the constituency that was picked to conduct this research was Kangema constituency. Kangema constituency has 3 wards. Out of those 3 wards, the researcher picked 12 homesteads to research on, and 2 administrative offices. Both primary and secondary data sources were used for this particular research, and the data collected was analyzed using thematic analysis and narrative data analysis methods. Ethical considerations were put in place while the research was being conducted, because most of the subjects did not want the photographs to be taken of their homesteads, and so that was respected. The main general findings of this rural area is that most of these communities, the families and homesteads, have around 2 hectares of land. The main source of income is farming for most of these areas, and the training on bio-based economies is either non-existent or it's very little. They have learned bio-based practices from seeing other people practice them. When it comes to energy, they use biogas, and it's not very common. Hydroelectric power is almost in every area of the rural area, because there is a rural electrification program by the government, and so most of these rural areas have electricity. They use most of this electricity to just do their lighting and charging of their devices, and the reason why they just used to do that is because they say that the hydroelectric power bills within this country are very high and they cannot use them for other things. Firewood and charcoal is another source of energy that they use for cooking and heating. The reason they do that is because they say it's commonly and readily available. They have their trees there. While they don't understand that cutting of the trees is wrong, they understand that once I have the firewood with me and the charcoal with me, I'm able to use it. Kerosene is also used, especially when there are power outages. They are very common in these rural areas, and it takes a very long time before any person from the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, the company in charge of hydroelectric power in Kenya, to come and repair these things. So they use a lot of kerosene when there are power outages, and the average cost of energy per household is $20 per month. In terms of food and nutrition, approximately $100 is used per month to source for food. They consume 3 meals on average per day, and the food is sourced mainly from the farm, apart from the manufactured and produced goods. The food waste is given to animals. They rarely have wastage. In terms of transport and infrastructure, they lack proper road transport, so they mostly walk to their various destinations, which can be very tiring, especially for the older people and the sick people. Hence, with this tiresome activity, motorbikes are used as another source of transportation, but these motorbikes are also not as efficient because they use fossil fuels to power them. The average cost of transportation per month per homestead is around $15. Most houses are semi-permanent. That means they are made out of corrugated iron sheets or timber. Again, this is cutting of trees within these areas that could be used to do other sustainable practices and environmental friendly practices. Few permanent houses are done using masonry, and the average number of houses per homestead is 3. One homestead could have 3 houses, and in each of these houses there is an average of 2 adults and 3 children. So in each compound, you'll find an average of 15 people. The construction materials that are produced and manufactured are approximately 4 kilometers away. Again, there is transportation from these shops to where this construction of houses is taking part, which also uses fuel, petroleum, which is also not a sustainable method of transportation. The farm activities, they have cash crops that they grow, which is tea and coffee, that they sell for their income. And they have income from milk, where they take to processing plants that are also far away from them. The nearest processing plant for milk was 4 kilometers away as well. Crops grown are sources like arrowroots, bananas, maize, beans, Irish potatoes, kale, sweet potatoes. They have a lot of fruit trees that they grow. Livestock feed is grown in form of napier grass. They have still not adopted the use of hay, which is more sustainable because you can keep it for long. Livestock reared is cows, goats, pigs, sheep, chicken. The common pets are dogs and cats. Most of these households had both, and the average cost of farm maintenance is around $50 per homestead. So how can we achieve bio-based economies? What are the drivers that we can use to improve these bio-based economies and the adoption of the same in rural areas in Kenya? One of the drivers of bio-based economies is raw materials and waste management. managing the waste so that it just goes round as a cycle within the economy and in a sustainable way. Rural areas in Kenya have been able to do this. They do not waste food. But there are other aspects of their materials that they are wasting. The milk, when it is excess, it is poured. They are not able to reach the destination of where the milk processing plant is on time. So these are the areas we are looking at. What can we do to improve this efficiency of raw materials and waste management? How can we bring these plants and factories closer to them so that when there is overproduction, we are able to not waste these materials but use them in producing other goods? We do not have to pour the milk. So what if we were able to produce yogurt out of it? Another driver of bio-based economy is policies of training and practice. When we went to the field, we found out that most of these communities do not understand what bio-based economies or bio-based practices are, and the few that understand learn from their neighbors. The government or the administrative offices within this area are doing very little to teach them how to do these bio-based practices. The same needs to be adopted, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in training and sensitization of these communities because they are ready and willing to have sustainable practices within their homes. Public-private investments. This is where we have the public and the private investors coming together to come up with industries. The industries would otherwise be able to use these raw materials that are going to waste because of how far they need to be transported. If the industries are within the community, we offer the community an opportunity to use all the materials that they produce to produce other goods, hence making the community sustainable. Technology. Technology comes about in making the community literate, making the community understand, train them, teach them how to do these things, teach them how to work with the machines that they got, teach them how to operate a biodigester, how the biodigester works. Teaching the community these technological advancements will teach them how to be able to practice these bio-based efficacies and to be able to put them into use. The rural governance, it is very important that the rural governance from our findings is able to walk around and find every aspect of the community that could become sustainable. From the findings of the research, we found out that it's very rare for the rural government to visit the areas and teach them these elements and show them show them that they are together with them in sustainable developments. If the rural government was to work together with the community in developing bio-based economies, it would be a very seamless flow because that would mean the higher government is also supporting, because the rural government is a representation of the higher government, the main government. Societal coordination is where you come up with a society that is well coordinated. The society would mean if Homestead A is producing element X, that means Homestead B is producing element Y. What am I saying? It means if Homestead X, meaning the homestead that's next to Homestead Y, is producing a lot of milk, how can we make Homestead Y produce another raw material that is required and Homestead Z produce another material that is required for the industries that now will come up after public-private investment within this area? It means every aspect and every homestead within this community and this rural area will produce a raw material that is required for the industries that will come up after the private-public investments. These drivers of bio-based economies, if all are put in place in our rural communities, they bring about a robust bio-based economy within this area. The practice of bio-based economy becomes a lifestyle for these rural communities. And the benefits of this are way too much. One of the benefits and most of the economic benefits of this are improved incomes. A bio-based economy has improvement of incomes through job opportunities from the industries that come up, through the raw materials, transportation of the same to the industries that would be there, production of the same using the raw materials that are produced there, employment to sensitize people on these practices. A lot of these job opportunities come about with improved incomes. Investment opportunities. This is where we talked about the public-private investment. The investment opportunities, if a bio-based economy is adopted in our rural areas, are a lot. There will be the guy that will be transporting raw materials with a mkokoteni from one area to another. A mkokoteni is a two-wheeled wooden cart that is made, and it has the two wheels are made out of recycled tires for a vehicle, and it is very common in Kenya. Employment opportunities will come about through the upcoming of industries. New markets will be available with the production of more material, more produce from the industries. There will be growth of industries, as we discussed earlier. The social benefits are that there will be improved human health. With the improved income comes improved human health, because the community is able to take care of their health. There is good education. One of the advantages of having a bio-based economy is improved income. And with improved income, the community is able to access good education. Food security will be there, because we are able to produce raw materials to a certain degree to be able to fund to the industries, and the part of production of the same would mean the homesteads and the people within these homesteads are able to be food secure. Poverty alleviation comes from job employment, job creation. Community cohesion and stability, when the community is working together towards all these areas, there's a lot of unity that comes about it, because everyone is working together towards one goal. Environmental benefits, we have the reduced pollution due to reduced use of fossil fuels, of course. Then we have improved soil fertilities, because we have also reduced use of fertilizers that are not efficient and sustainable. Protection of wildlife, with the reduction of cutting of trees to use firewood or cutting of trees to build houses, then we have a lot of environment for the wildlife, and the wildlife environment is not destroyed. And we have reduction in global warming from now maintaining our trees. They are able to clean our air. So with all these benefits, all of it coming together from the drivers of the economy, when all of it comes together, it comes to bring up an improvement of livelihoods. This is why we are saying that when a bio-based economy is put in place in a rural community, all these drivers of bio-based economies are used to bring about the bio-based economy. And when this is done, there will be benefits that trickle down to the last person in this rural economy. When these benefits come about, the entirety of that person is improved, and this is what we are talking about, good livelihoods. In conclusion, a bio-based economy is a sustainable practice and a system that can work to improve livelihoods within rural communities. And when it is successful for an entire community, for an entire economy in a country. We hope that this research will be able to bring about change in rural communities and in communities in general, and the entire public and nations of different parts of the world. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Pauline Mutua.